The Roman army was in motion, disarmed, scattered mid-march. Suddenly the tree line shattered. Tens of thousands of Nervii warriors came storming down the ridge. What followed was not just a battle. It was a scramble for survival. And at its center stood one man, Julius Caesar. The year is 57 BC. Julius Caesar, newly appointed proconsul of Gaul, is waging an aggressive campaign northward. His mission is both conquest and glory. To crush resistance, secure Roman rule, and write his name into history. After subduing the Helvetii and defeating the Belgi in scattered engagements, Caesar moves toward the heart of northern Gaul. But not all of Gaul submits. The Nervii, a fiercely independent Belgic tribe, refused to parley. Unlike other tribes who negotiated or fled, the Nervii chose to fight, and not in open battle, but by ambush. Caesar's scouts report no sign of danger. The Nervii have hidden their entire army in dense forests along a steep ridge beside the river Sabis, now believed to be the modern Selle in northern France. Confident and unaware of the trap, Caesar leads his 6 legions forward. The goal: set camp on the opposite bank and draw the enemy into the open. But the Nervii won't wait. They plan to strike before the Romans can even form up. It begins with movement. The Roman army in its usual column approaches the river. At the front rides Caesar with the cavalry and several scouting detachments. Behind them in sequence are his legions, the 7th, 12th, 8th, 11th, 9th, and 10th, each followed by its own baggage train. They aren't in battle formation. They're on the march, stretched out and unprepared. As the leading legions arrive near the Sabis, the first cohorts begin crossing the shallow river and ascending the far bank. Caesar selects a slight rise to establish camp and begins issuing orders for entrenchments. Then, it happens. Without warning, the dense forest ahead explodes with movement. From every shadow hill and hollow, the Nervii appear. Not in scattered war bands, but in a coordinated mass. 60,000 warriors surge forward, racing down the wooded slopes. With them are their allies, the Atrebates and Viromandui, launching a full frontal assault on the Roman lines. The Roman cavalry, scouting ahead, is the first to be hit. They're swept aside in moments. Some retreat in panic, others are cut down where they stand. The suddenness of the attack sends shockwaves through the entire Roman column. Caesar's camp is unfinished. Many soldiers are still crossing the river. Some legions haven't even arrived. The Roman legions at the front, the 7th and 12th, are the first to meet the charge. These men, just beginning to pitch their tents, grab shields, strap on helmets, and form whatever lines they can. It's not enough. The Nervii smash into them. The Nervii charge like a tidal wave, fast, disciplined, and fanatically determined. They throw javelins as they run, but don't pause to fight at a distance. They aim to close, overwhelm, and destroy the Romans before they can even draw swords. Behind them, the 8th and 11th legions arrive on the scene and immediately move to support the front. But there's no time to form proper formations. At the same time, the Viromandui hit the Roman center. The 8th and 11th legions absorb the blow, fighting hand to hand. But with no support on the flanks and no reserve units nearby, they begin to buckle. Caesar himself rides forward into the chaos. Realizing how dire the situation is, he grabs a shield from a retreating soldier, rallies his officers, and shouts commands above the din. He's not watching the battle. He's inside it. Meanwhile, on the Roman right, Nervii attack the 7th and 12th with such ferocity that these legions are driven backward. Lines begin to collapse. Centurions fall one by one. The Nervii press forward, not stopping to loot or regroup. Their goal is complete destruction. They've studied Roman habits. They know the army is most vulnerable during camp setup, and they intend to exploit it. And worse, a third Belgic tribe now moves unseen around the Roman line, making for the baggage train at the rear. The camp followers scream. Officers try to organize a defense using cooks, servants, and slaves. It's a massacre in the making. For a moment, the Roman army, one of the finest in the world, is close to complete collapse. Just then, dust rises on the horizon. The last two Roman legions, the 9th and the 10th, finally arrive, still in marching formation. Behind them, Caesar's allied troops, cavalry, slingers, and light infantry begin to regroup. But is it too late? The Nervii are inside the Roman camp. Caesar is fighting on foot. 2 legions are nearly routed, and the rest of the army is scattered. In the next moments, the fate of the Roman campaign and Caesar's legacy hangs by a thread. The situation was desperate. Caesar was fighting at the front. 2 legions were breaking. Enemy warriors had reached the baggage train, and only now did the final Roman legions arrive. Victory, or total disaster, would be decided in the next few minutes. As the 9th and 10th legions come over the ridge, they see the battlefield in chaos. Roman standards are scattered. The river crossings are jammed with wounded and fleeing troops. And ahead, the Nervii surge deeper into Roman lines. But Caesar doesn't retreat. He does the opposite. He gallops to the 10th Legion, his most disciplined and battle-hardened unit, and personally places them in position. They're still in marching order, but that discipline becomes their advantage. They don't need time. They deploy immediately. With Caesar giving orders in person, the 10th forms ranks and begins pushing toward the collapsing center. They strike with precision, not to hold ground, but to split the Nervii advance and relieve the pressure on the broken legions. Meanwhile, the 9th Legion and Caesar's cavalry regroup and launch a counterattack from the flank. The timing is perfect. The Nervii, having stretched their forces across the river, up the hill, and into the Roman camp, are now vulnerable. Their initial shock has lost momentum. The compact, aggressive Roman formations now begin striking them from multiple angles. At the same time, officers from the battered 7th and 12th Legions rally their men. Seeing the 10th arrive restores morale. Veterans begin to hold the line. Some regroup and push forward. In the camp, chaos still reigns. But even here, resistance forms. Engineers, baggage handlers, and a few officers form makeshift defenses. Allied slingers and Numidian cavalry now appear behind the Nervii, adding to the growing encirclement. The Nervii had launched one of the most devastating ambushes in Roman history. But now, their momentum breaks. The fighting turns brutal and close. Short swords, fists, and shields used as weapons. No formations, no trumpets, only survival. But Roman training begins to prevail. The Nervii, who fought with near-suicidal bravery, begin to fall back. Those who had pressed deep into the Roman lines now find themselves cut off. The Viromandui and Atrebates are in disarray, struggling to coordinate. Roman troops exploit this, splitting them, surrounding them, and pressing with relentless pressure. Caesar himself stays at the center, fighting beside his men. He notes in his commentaries that the battle was decided not by strategy, but by the sheer discipline and courage of the Roman legions. The Nervii refuse to surrender. They form small circles, fighting to the last man. Caesar later writes that their warriors clung to death rather than flee, and only stopped fighting once they were physically unable to raise arms. By the time the sun begins to fall, the field is soaked in blood. Of the estimated 60,000 Nervii who launched the ambush that morning, only a few hundred survive. The Roman dead are numerous, but not catastrophic. Caesar never gives a precise number, but losses were heavy among centurions and officers. But the Nervii were effectively annihilated. When Caesar sent envoys to negotiate terms with the surviving tribe members, he found only a handful of elders and wounded warriors. They pleaded for mercy, not for themselves, but for their women and children, now starving in the woods. Caesar spared them. Perhaps it was strategy, perhaps it was mercy. But either way, the Nervii, once the fiercest Belgic tribe, ceased to be a major force in Gaul. Back in Rome, the story was different. Caesar wrote of the battle as one of his finest hours, a tale of discipline under pressure, of near defeat turned into victory, of a general who didn't hide behind lines, but fought beside his men. The Battle of the Sabis was not Rome's most glorious victory, but it was one of its closest calls, a moment when empire teetered on the edge of disaster, and a single man's resolve may have saved it.